On the evening of May 3, 2007, an unlocked patio door, an empty bed, and a pair of parents dining exactly 50 meters away created the perfect conditions for a tragedy. This is 3-year-old Madeleine McCann. Over the last 18 years, her disappearance has become the most heavily reported missing person case in modern history. The family was vacationing in Praia da Luz, a picturesque resort town in Portugal's Algarve region. It's an environment that lulls people into a deep sense of security. Families leave doors unlocked, routines become predictable, and that predictability creates a fatal vulnerability. Operating in that exact same region was Christian Bruckner. He was a transient drifter with a criminal record for drug trafficking and burglary, a man already well acquainted with the resort towns of the Algarve. His presence forces us to ask a chilling question about that night in May. Was a child abducted during a routine burglary that suddenly escalated in a moment of panic? Or was this a meticulously planned strike by a predator who had been watching the family all along? To understand how quickly the perpetrator moved, we have to look at the physical layout of the Ocean Club resort. The McCann's ground floor apartment sat approximately 50 meters from the tapas restaurant where they were eating with friends. The parents established a rigid schedule, taking turns leaving the table to check on the sleeping children. Jerry McCann walked back to the apartment and saw Madeleine asleep at 9:05 p.m. When Kate McCann made the next check at 10 p.m., the bed was empty. Inside that narrow 55-minute window, two crucial sightings occurred. At 9:15 p.m., a family friend named Jane Tanner saw a man carrying a child away from the complex. And right at 10 p.m., another family, the Smiths, spotted a man carrying a blonde girl in pajamas, moving away from the resort. By the time local police responded, panic had already set in. Around 50 different people were allowed to walk in and out of the unsealed apartment before it was secured. They smoked, they flicked ash on the floor, and they permanently contaminated the space. The heavy window shutters showed no signs of forced entry. Entering and exiting that bedroom without leaving a mark required a specific level of composure, the kind that comes from years of illicit practice. That immediate erasure of physical evidence created an absolute void. Without a pristine crime scene, traditional DNA analysis became impossible. Investigators were forced to pivot entirely away from physical traces and rely on behavioral profiling. This chart tracks the severity of Christian Bruckner's criminal history over time, and it shows a highly alarming upward trajectory. He started with teenage theft in Germany, but by age 17, his record spiked with a child abuse conviction. After fleeing to Portugal, he needed a way to fund his transient lifestyle. He made his living breaking into holiday apartments in the Algarve. Over years of practice, he mastered the specific skill of entering unfamiliar, occupied tourist spaces quickly and quietly. Then came a severe escalation. In 2005, just 1 mile from the resort where the McCanns would later stay, Bruckner broke into a home and violently raped a 72-year-old American woman. This is the psychological transition investigators look for. The voyeuristic thrill of invading private spaces merges with sadism and a need for control. We also know from his chats with like-minded individuals that he had a history of keeping trophies from his crimes to document his offenses. The abductor on May 3rd had to possess a very specific set of skills. They needed the stealth of an experienced burglar and the severe paraphilic urges of an escalating predator. Bruckner's established behavioral fingerprints match that exact description. Put yourself in the mind of an offender standing at that unlocked patio door. He knows the area. He knows the routines of tourists. He might have arrived that night intending only to steal valuables, but when he saw an opportunity, his psychological conditioning took over, and he made a split-second choice to take the child. 13 years later, a breakthrough finally anchored that theory. Digital forensics revealed that Bruckner's cell phone was pinging a tower located right next to the Praia da Luz apartment during the exact window of Madeleine's disappearance. That digital trace led German, British, and Portuguese police to search the Barragem do Arade reservoir in 2023, an area Bruckner used to call his little paradise. They brought in heavy machinery, drones, and divers, hunting for any trophies or physical remains he might have hidden there. But the long gap between the crime and these new leads allowed a massive media circus to fill the void. For years, intense public scrutiny and aggressive tabloid reporting derailed the investigation, unfairly casting suspicion directly onto Kate and Jerry McCann. The vacuum left by the police allowed a media circus to take hold. While public focus turned towards speculative theories of a parental cover-up, the investigation into an outside predator stalled for over a decade. Despite being the prime suspect in Madeleine's disappearance, securing a conviction remains incredibly difficult without pristine physical evidence. Recently, Bruckner was actually acquitted of several unrelated rape and sexual abuse charges in Germany, highlighting the strict limits of building a case on circumstantial evidence alone. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains an enduring, tragic consequence. It shows exactly what happens when a 50-meter gap of parental trust is breached by an opportunistic predator.